Okay, there's a new dryer motor. I'm replacing it. The old one because the bearing, the bushing is worn excessively in here. So I'm going to hook it up and just run it for a few seconds to make sure it runs. There you go. Now the heater's actually on in the dryer, so I'm going to open up the door and shut it off. Power's live now. These two wires here are hooking into the heater. And then the other wires, the gray, the white, and the brown on this are actually the start and run winding. So if I shut the door again, kick it on, there you go. So the motor works. And for the rest, I'm going to go ahead and unplug the dryer so we don't have any electricity hooked up. Back of my dryer, I got a little cheat sheet here marked with a Sharpie, so I know how to rewire it. I did this years ago here, and the Sharpie's going to wear off because this area gets hot, so you may sometimes have to redo it. See, this has all been up here on the top. All that tends to stay because it doesn't get hot. Sharpie tends to wuss out with time. Okay, this is the old motor. We've got a new one over here. And these clips, these are spring metal. I had a hard time getting these off. I went through and finally got a grippers here and finally undid these. But these were kind of a booger bear to get off there. And there's the old motor. That's the spring for the other piece. It goes in there like that. And see if we can clip these on here. Yeah, I'm going to try to put the clips on. You got a little piece here. And those must be some type of spring steel. See if I can push that on it. Man, I don't want to go on there. You gotta get a screwdriver and pull us down. That sucker's on there. It's got to be compressed a bunch. Get on there. Restart the camera again. These little doodads here, the punch out's got to go down into the groove of the Delrin. So I'm going to move this back and forth. That little feature right there. See if I can get in the groove. And then pull this around. And I won't have to use so much force to pop that on there. Just about got it. Okay, let's go ahead and try a pair of channel locks on here. See if I can compress that some. Put this over here so I can hold this with my left hand. See if I can push on here. Get that joker in there. Let me put it on the floor so I can push against the floor. Look, that's helping it on. Put it on. Look like that's helping it. That's got to go a whole bunch on there. I just don't like how shouldn't have to push with the darn force to bust the shit out of this thing. There it went. I had to probably push with about probably about 80 pounds to push that thing in there. Son of a gun. So it's in there, but Lord of mercy, it was just, probably we should have filed the ears on there. So we've got this thing, let me zoom back. There's a motor in place. New motor. See, the old one, I could spin this thing around, the motor almost on here. If you look at the old one here, the grooves on this were much wider. This one had narrower grooves. So maybe that's probably the punch outs for this piece were not fully seating in there. Probably should have gone back and just taken about a few, put a triangular file. Probably should have taken a little bit off of, not the spring, but on the frame. Should have done that, because that's kind of an absurdity. Now here's the tag. There's a Q number 603-182. There's another one, Q612-141. That's the Navy part number, I believe, or procurement number. These actually got the exact same numbers on them, which is pretty cool. And then this is the bolt for the fan. Put that on there for right now. This is the pulley. The old pulley here. Let's see to find the new pulley. Old pulley. I might just go ahead and use the new pulley. Okay, to see where the old pulley went here on this. Put this into here. The set screw lines up. It's right there. So it's got about a 1/16 of an inch showing. So this new one will go on here like this. So it's about like that. Put the new set screw in. Actually, the pulley didn't come with the set screw. I'm going to have to find my Allen wrench that disappeared around here. Lost in all the stuff. Okay, I found my Allen wrench over here. Kind of under the napkin that was over there. Just set this to the same place. Tighten it down. This sucker was really tight, because the old one went underwater in Katrina. Move that back some. That looks good. And this particular one's been rounded off. I might actually use a different wrench. I believe it was it that one it fit? Yep. And that's an 1/8 inch. Little Walmart set. Yeah, this other one I twisted the wrench to get it off. So that's good. This is going to go hook up to right here. That's the ground. So the old motor here, there's the screw. Oh, what is this now? Find the wrench. I think that's a 1/4. Get the 1/4 inch off. This is the ground lug. This is self-tapping. It's a little bit tough because it's going into the die casting for the first time. That's good and tight. This is for the, of course, this is for the tension spring. Goes in here like this. Now, where the pulley on this actually may have to move this pulley here. I've got it where the old one was, but once it's running, I guess I can go through and see where it needs to be, because this actually may have to be moved inboard. I put this pulley where the old one was, here, which was like that, which had a gap. I can see through here the hole, and now since I get the set screw apart, I can see that I screwed up. I can see that this is more than what this is. So I'm going to go ahead and move this back some. So I can look through the hole here and see where the old set screw was, like that. So it should be about like that. And let's go check that with the alignment of this. And that looks way better. So this has got to where these are pretty much lined up through here. There's the crown here. I don't know if this is crowned or not. I may end up trying to get a new pulley for this. We'll just see how it runs. But the crown, the max barrel shape is on right here. And when this was worn on here, this shaft was lifting up. So this guy was pushed up like this. And then the belt was running right up against this edge. It was chewing the belt up. And that's why it's worn over here. As you can see on here, those are just lined up about like that. Now, we'll tighten this up. I don't have to go too crazy. Got the pulley on. Now, let's see if we can figure how to put the fan on. Got a spring. Here's the fan. And this is the thing I was worried about getting off. This has got both ends of this motor got a D-shaped piece, and it goes on there like that. But this piece is on the inside here. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop the camera and clean this crud off here and then come back. Okay, here's the motor. And put the fan on. This is a 7-bladed fan. This is a spring that biases this plate that pushes against the plastic box that's the return air, the exit air. And so when it's in the unit, it pushes this, the frame actually pushes this forward of the exhaust plastic box. Here's the fan. It's got a D. You can rotate this around so it fits on there. So it's like this. Spring is down into a feature here on the metal ring. So this goes to it, bottoms out. Here's a screw, goes into the end of the shaft. And that's why different machines have different attachment methods. So if you get a motor that looks sort of like one of these, maybe it's not going to actually work. So I got the exact motor just by guy had one on eBay. Brand new in the box, new old stock. So you got to push on this a little bit to get the threads to engage. We'll see if we can get this tightened up. What is this? That's a 5/16 inch. And it doesn't have to be that tight. I mean, I'm just going to snug this up a little bit. So if you run this right now, you're going to wonder, why is this spring rubbing up into here? but when it's in the box, in the unit installed, this gets pushed back. So this is not contacting anything. If you just want to test the motor here, you're going to get some action of the spring. So this particular one's got a 7-bladed fan. So I got the spring on here. Here's some of my wiring notes, because a lot of times I just want to make sure, you know, you hook up something, it's easy to know how to hook it back up. There's this gizmo goes onto here. That's the belt, comes down around here and over, and then this, actually let me see, this goes in here like this. There's a catch under here, and this is going to pull us down. So I can put this into here, into the spring, and let's see if we can just hook that on there real quick. There you go. So I may have that wrong. The belt comes, whatever. I've got a diagram on there. So that's the pivot. There's a screw here just so it doesn't bottom out. This is the original pulley on here. 42 years, 43, whatever. So we're good to go. I got the assembly. I think sometimes you can buy the motor with already mounted on the frame. Sometimes units are like that. Probably cost more. Again, this is being replaced because this bushing here was worn, not because there's a winding issue, and it was pushing up and riding high on the belt. And the starting torque was higher because the bushing oil light bearing was basically shot, and I was going through and oiling this thing every couple weeks and screwing around, and it just got to be more of a pain in the butt. I had to open up and give the drum a go. You can see this has got the slop of about a credit card. And I got another video where you can also probably turn the unit sideways and then have the bearing push this. We undo this in the cradle and rotate it over. But I just elected to put a whole new motor on there. Now I'm going to go ahead and install the motor. Okay, I've got the unit here in the back of the dryer here. They got a diagram that shows my particular unit. That's the gray wire. Over here, these are the two that are for the switch. The black and white hooks to here. The one that goes over to this, that's the switch. And that's a little bit, needs to get out of the way of that arm. The white, black, and the brown. The brown black hooks up to here. And this white wire hooks to that. So the little wires are for the motor, to turn the motor to the start and the run. The big ones are actually hooked up to the heater, which is, so the motor's got to be running in order to turn the heater on. And just for kicks, I'm going to fire this thing up. May make a little bit of noise because of the fan is on here. I'm going to go ahead and plug the connector in. Let's see if it'll fire up. Dancing around because you got a fan, and also you've got this rubbing action. So it all runs. Also doing that, you've got the heater on, that connected. So I got it back to unplugged, and then this joker goes inside the unit. We're going to move the camera, see if we can get closer. Again, I got the main plug disconnected. Down in there is the duct that the fan goes into. And what I may have done, before I even look at this, sometimes I put screws back in. And right here, I've got the screws out. No, they're off to the side. I see them. Screws are off down over there. It's the tunnel with the thermostat right there. So, you can go ahead and stick probably the whole assembly through. There's the screws. I like to leave screws and stuff either in the unit or in little Ziploc bags. And I got to get those orange wires out of the way. Okay, I've gone through and gotten the unit past the orange wires. And let's see if we can get in here and see what's going on. Now when this is pushed in place, the spring is compressed and it gets it to where it's not rubbing on the fan. So I'm going to push this in place and put the screws down into the frame. Let's see if we got it. Got the old camera right now as a tripod. Now what's weird in here, there's two sets of holes. If you put it in the first hole here through the frame, it's not going to compress this. There's another set right over here. And that's the one you can see it's been tapped. So I don't know if there's two different versions of this thing. If I push this all the way in, you can line it up. So I'm going to lay on my back, see if I can push that in and also film this. So I got that one started. So this is actually biased back, which means that the motor's trying to come to the back unit side. So the spring, I'm compressing the spring that's pushing on the, and then this way in the back here, there's the piece that seals against the Delrin box. So you push the motor in, you can tighten these real easy. Let me see if I can find a wrench. It's that. I think it's a 3/8. So to push the motor in, these tighten real easy. I put some grease on them. To push the motor toward the front, you go in real easy. Again, this dryer went underwater in Katrina, so it's seen some action. Still got some marsh grass inside of it. I put a little bit of grease on them just so it's easy to put in. Plus, if I got to take this out years later, less chance. This is just a 3/8 inch wrench. Just to snug them down. It doesn't be crazy tight. And let me see if I can move the camera to show what's going on back there. There you go. The way in the back here, the piece that's the spring piece needs to be completely set in, and that's in there where the belt is hanging down in here. And I put a new belt on 2 months ago. This is a flat belt. So this is going to go over the top and then over this pulley here. So you put her down here first around the pulley. And then you can grab this. Let me see. The easiest way for me to do this is to probably grab a screwdriver someplace. Put the screwdriver, balance this up, go around the pulley, and the camera's sort of in the way. need to get this wire so it's not, push the wire back here. And I think I screwed up in the sense that I didn't put, let me show you here. This is why it's good to, I didn't go through and connect this up, and that's why, so I got to go ahead and find the screw off the old motor and put the wire piece on here. And that's why this wire is really close to the spring. So let me see if I can, actually it's on the old motor. I might have to just cut this out of the video. Let's just see. It's on actually the old motor, which is now the tripod. There's the screw. Just took it out. So that's why it's good to have either video or just pictures. So probably should have put that on beforehand. There's the little screw. That's just a half-quarter inch. It's going to go into the frame of the new motor. I'm kind of lucky this is easy to get at. Let's see if I can tighten the sucker down. That's just the wiring harness plastic piece right there. Without that, it just keeps the wires out of the way of the spring-loaded pulley piece. If you did these all day long, you'd just laugh and say, well, you should have known that. But there you go. Now I'm going to try to, let's see if it's going to get in the way of the lens. Let me go ahead and just see if I can plug in the unit and look for smoke. We'll just see if it runs. It doesn't take the light down. Okay, I've got it plugged in now. There we go. We've got dryer action. I'm going to move the camera now. I've got the light in there. It's running actually in the center of the pulley, pretty much. So I'm going to grab the camera. It was running at the edge. It's actually running more toward the center. So what happened with time is the belt was running towards the rear of the machine because the shaft was lifting up. So right now we've got the dryer on actually. New belt. A couple of months ago. It's got a brand new pulley, which probably really didn't need. I just happen to have one. That's one of the reasons the belt actually got all frayed on the old one. It didn't break, but the edge was all worn. This outer edge here. Got my hand real far away, but the outer edge was warm because it was kissing the edge of the pulley. So if I zoom in here, it's running really well. That's the cycling thermostat in there. Got my light really close to the drum. And the only thing left I got to do on this machine is I got to go ahead and change the terminal block, because right now it's running on 110 volts in the heater. I've got it kind of rigged up here. I've got a terminal block failed, so I'm actually just running on one hot and one neutral. The other hot's not connected. Not really great, but that's the way it goes. So here's the machine here. This particular mode is for low heat, which uses 110 volt coil. Kick it on, put the drum running. All sorts of cool stuff in here. New bearing in the back, new coil, 2008, new belt, October. It's a pretty simple machine. Here's the motor switch, goes to the heater coil. Got the over temperature switches right down in here. Over temperature switch is actually right, it's actually right there. That would be like if the motor was still, the fan stopped or the blade disintegrated and somehow, like if the belt broke on this particular unit, the motor can still spin. And so you have a situation it could overheat. I'm not sure how that could happen. If maybe the blade disintegrated on the fan, you had no airflow, over temp. That's an over temp switch. Cycling is down there in the exit tube. And I've got a new box I got to put in here, a new connector. Took a while to figure out what that was. Now if I connect this over here, the regular, they got no heat right now because that uses both legs of the coil, one's not connected. So in low heat on this particular model, what it does, it uses 110 volts to ground. And so you only have, say, 1400 watts or something like that on low heat. Some of them have a dual thermostat and whatever, but this is just a low-tech machine. They also do this sometimes because of you can actually configure this to run only on 110 volts only, where the auto dry on here actually uses the coil to where it's using both eggs. You tie the two hots together. You undo this here, turns it off because there's a switch in here. And one of these, that's the switch down in here to the door. It actually connects up through the motor. So the motor actually connects up here to the door switch for the start. So if I go through and start this and open and close the door real quick, it still runs because the start winding relay is still connected. If I open this up and let for more than a second or two, you can hear the click of the motor. The centrifugal clutch will click out. There, right there, the click. Now you have to hit the start. Now if I have the door open, not going to start. So if you shut this. Now what it was doing when the motor was bad, when I say the motor, the worn bushing, you'd hit this and you hear it labor to start. And that wasn't electrical problems, mechanical. And I wouldn't do this yourself. I've got this dress so I'm not kissing the wires here on this. But the Bakelite finally cracked on that years ago. Had a hard time finding the documentation and finally found the correct terminal connector that goes in there. And then this cord that's on here is way too short because it's been spliced a bunch of times. So I've got a 6-foot cord on there so I can go through and you also notice on here that the belt is actually running a little bit, about an inch, half-inch forward than it was. That's because it's running correctly on the pulley. This machine uses in the back like a ball and socket. Looks like a little trailer hitch ball. So the back of the drum is held by the ball, and the front has got felts that are in there, down in here. And it's got some high temperature lubricant that's in here. This guy went up right where that line is down in here. That's where it went up to. This thing went up in Katrina to about here. So you got about 2 feet of water. So it's a survivor. There's the model, serial number. There's the belt. This is the power distribution. The power. 12 volts is 14 amps. I mean 120 volts is 14 amps. If you use it on 12240, it's 23 when you're a normal high heat. And then if you use it on 122.8, there's 208 across the main coil. So you only get 20 amps. And then there's the cycling thermostat here. I never did replace the cycling thermostat on there. But this has been a good unit. Did replace this screen. I think this was steel. Got all corroded with Katrina. And back here is where the trailer hitch ball thing is. And that sits in a Delrin pocket. So there's this round gizmo in the back that's screwed on and has a ball about that big around. I'd say it's about an inch in diameter that's horizontal, and then it sits in a pocket of Delrin. It's got 3 or 4 little grooves, semicircle, and then that's got some high temperature grease. If you just use some regular grease, what it's going to do, it's going to weep out and go all over the place, and you could, I don't know, it's not really good to do that because you've got to have some, it may get down in where the coils are. If you turn this off when it's on the high thing, you just open the door, it's at night, you can actually see the coil. The coil's actually, you can see a little bit of glow from the coil, but it's kind of behind there. You can kind of see a little bit of glow. So what I got left to do is I got to go ahead and put the new cable on. This is just rigged up, not great. And I got to button up the back. So got a working dryer.